Hi everybody, welcome to Top Shelf Tuesday. Once again, I'm your host, Claudio. Thank you for joining us. I want to welcome everybody back from a wonderful Labor Day weekend. I hope everybody enjoyed themselves at the beach, whether it was the Hamptons or the shore or wherever you were. Welcome back. And for those parents out there, I'm sure you're all very happy to put your kids back in school. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about what happens in the watch business. Right around now is the time that everybody is back and the stores start to get filled again with consumers, with collectors. So we want to say thank you guys for taking the summer off, but we're ready to come see you. We're ready for you to come visit us again. Today's topic actually kind of happened by accident. As I said in the last show, I didn't want to do anything that was scripted or anything that was planned out. So I was actually sitting in my car and thinking about what could we talk about. So it kind of evolved into this really cool story that I'd like to share with you. And it actually started from a timepiece from a brand that I actually used to work for, Frank Mueller, and I actually have the piece with me today. We get a close-up of the 6850. There it is, Vegas. So this is an automatic stainless steel. It is the 6850 Vegas on stainless steel with a green dial. We get a closer look at that, or there you go. Anybody who knows this piece knows that, well, what is it? It's a watch with a roulette dial on it. And as you press the crown, where there's a slight pusher in there, it lands on a number. So today's number, actually 7, it was in between 7 and 28. 28 being a lucky number for many of us, and especially for Roger Dubuis, and number 7 being my lucky number. So when I was looking at this watch, it reminded me of a story which I'd be happy to share with you. And it started when I first started working for Frank Mueller, and I saw this timepiece come out, and I thought it was, wow, this is such a cool timepiece. The dial, the function. Essentially, it's just an automatic watch, and it has a roulette wheel on the dial. This is not the American roulette. This is actually the European, so you don't have a 00. You just have 0 until 36. And of course, I am a daydreamer, and I am a bit creative. So I started to think about what can I talk about and how can I sort of merge my experience in the watch business and with this timepiece. So it kind of evolved. And the way it started was Mr. Frank Mueller himself, when I was working there, I asked him, I said, Frank, how did you come up with this really cool timepiece? As you know, he's one of the most creative watchmakers out there, and a living watchmaker as well, which is also very cool. So he then started to tell me the story, and I've heard this story told to other people. So excuse me if I'm not being 100% factual, but I remember it as such. He was in Las Vegas. He was with Steve Wynn, and apparently he had a really bad night at the tables. And he looked at Steve Wynn and he said, Steve, you got to help me. I'm getting crushed at the tables. He says, can you speak to your dealers or maybe rig the machine so that I could win a couple of hands or make some of my money back? And Steve looked at him and said, hey, you're the genius here. Why don't you create a watch that can help you win at these games? And at that minute, inspiration struck. He passed the roulette wheel. He looked at Steve and he said, I got it. I'm going to create a Vegas watch. So that's the story behind this piece, and what's really cool is I heard it from him. I heard it from the man himself. But that kind of evolved into what I wanted to talk about this week. And I'm not saying that you should all go out and gamble, but I know many of us have been out there, especially on big weekends like this. You go to AC, you go to Vegas, wherever you want to go. And you're sitting at the table, and all of a sudden you're up a tremendous amount of money, or you're down a tremendous amount of money. But I like to talk about the situation when you're up a tremendous amount of money. So I've been sitting there before. I don't want to talk exact dollar figures, but you're sitting down and you're thinking to yourself, wow, I'm up big time. I could triple this. I could quadruple this. You're starting to think about your next vacation home. You're thinking about your next car purchase. You're thinking about your next watch purchase. So I was wondering, how can I tell a fantasy story? And by the way, this is fiction. This isn't factual. How can I tell a story about this timepiece and make it fun, interesting, and show you guys some really cool timepieces? So I started to think, there were times where I've said to myself, why didn't I just quit? You're up 10, 20, 30, 50, whatever, $100,000, and you're sitting at the table and you're saying to yourself, I could turn this into $1 million. And at that very moment, you start losing hand after hand after hand. But what if this watch, this 6850 stainless steel Vegas watch, let me get a closer look at that dial. What if this timepiece was a magical timepiece? What if I went to Vegas, or even closer, Atlantic City, at the Borgata, sat down at the roulette table, and could not stop winning? So this lends me to the story that I wanted to tell everybody about. What if I won? What if I won big time? Well, what would I do? I definitely would not want to give any of it back. So what would I do with the money? Well, I was thinking about it. First things first, I jump into a helicopter, I take off, get as far away from the casino as possible, and I would make it to Philadelphia. Of course, if I'm going to stay in Philadelphia, why not the Ritz-Carlton, which is right around the block from Govberg Jewelers. Power up, get a nice breakfast, and then make my way for a shopping spree. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to buy, it was really easy. I went on Govberg website, I looked at some of the pre-owned watches, I walked around, I looked at the cases, and basically I built a collection of timepieces that I would buy if I hit the jackpot. And I'd like to share that with you today. So without further ado, let us start with the first timepiece. And I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to Frank Mueller for helping me win all this money in my imaginary story. So let's start with timepiece number one. I know many of you have probably seen this before, and we've probably talked about this before, but this is the FP Journe Centigraph Sport. Can we get a close-up here? There it is. So originally it was launched in 2012 in aluminum. There it is, much better picture. By the way, I heard many of you tell me that I needed to work on my display game. So here it is. Now you can see the dial, you can see the bracelet, everything's nice and clear. It was originally launched in 2012, and it was made entirely of aluminum. But that since has been discontinued. It's a 42 millimeter. It has a chrono, and actually it has this chrono rocker here, which is patented by FP Journe. Very cool, and if any of you watch Tim's videos, you can see this should be what we're all doing in the future. I mean, it's 2 buttons, start, stop, reset. I mean, it's fantastic. So thank you, Mr. Journe, for creating this wonderful function on as a chronograph. It's a super light timepiece. It's 11 millimeters thick. It has a 3-link flexible bracelet, and it has some vulcanized rubber accents to it. So not only do you have the comfort of this super lightweight watch, but aesthetically, and if you look at the contrast of the black and the gray, it's really nice. I chose this piece just like all the pieces that I'll be going with in these future shows while I put this on my wrist. It's because when I put it on, I didn't want to take it off. That's upside down, but you can see. Now the chronos are a little bit different than most chronos. Number one, it times at the 9 to 11 o'clock mark. And I'm going to just take it off my wrist so that I could share with you guys. It times 1/100th of a second. There it is. At the 1 to 3 o'clock, it has a 20-second counter. And then at the 5 to 7, it has a 10-minute register. So who's going to time anything at 1/100th of a second, or 20-second intervals, or even 10-minute intervals? So essentially, very different, very cool, and I would say almost ingenious, because you're actually looking at the movement of the chronograph, and that's actually, you know, acting as a form of entertainment. What's interesting about this piece is it also has an 80-hour power reserve. It's a movement number 1506, so it's a manual movement. And what's also very interesting about it is if you keep the chronograph running, it has a 24-hour power reserve. So something very cool. As I said, if you don't keep the chronograph running, it's got an 80-hour power reserve. I did mention that the chrono rocker is a patented. As I said, it's super sensible. The watch itself weighs 56 grams. And for what it's worth, you're getting an in-house FP Journe movement, who I think is probably one of the most creative and one of the best watchmakers alive today. And you're getting a very, very cool watch for $50,400. So for my first watch on this shopping spree, I'm going to go with the FP Journe Centigraph Sport in titanium. We do have this available, so if you want to come take a look at it, please come see us. Now, my second watch, I said, well, I need something a little bit dressier, right? This is a cool sports watch. It's going to be fun. It's lightweight, but I need something of substantial weight, value, and I also wanted something a little bit flashy, but not flashy in a bad way, flashy in a great way. I'm going to put the gloves on for this one. So this is an all rose gold, Everose, 42 millimeter Sky Dweller. For many of you who think Rolex just makes automatic watches with dates or chronographs, you're severely mistaken. This is such a cool annual calendar. So it takes a little bit of explaining so that you could understand it, but essentially what it is, and I actually set the watch prior to the show. So I set it with 2 different time zones. You have the time zone on the East Coast. So as you can see, it is almost 6:15, right? And then the second time zone, well, I set it to Geneva because that's the home of watchmaking, and that's also where my in-laws are. Then lastly, you also have a date. So if you look at the 9 o'clock, that is actually telling you it's the 9th month of the year. And then of course, in Rolex fashion, can you see the date? There's the date. It's interesting because the way you set this watch, it's all in the bezel. And I really love that. You don't have to use a corrector for anything. It's just a matter of turning the bezel a bit and adjusting the crown to change the date, to change the time zone, and whatnot. So let's try and set this watch together. Right now I have it in the 3rd position. So I've turned the bezel all the way to the right, or all the way to the right. And it's a screw down crown, so I'm going to screw down the crown. There it is. Sorry guys, I don't want to block that beautiful bracelet. And if I wanted to change the local time, there it is. Now, if I wanted to just change the hour, I turn it to the right, sorry, and you could actually change the hours. So there you go. And then if I turn it one more time, you can change the date. Now what's really interesting is you could go forward and backwards. So let's say, can you get a closer look at that? So that's the 30th. As you can see here at the 8 o'clock, there's a slight touch of red in the aperture, which is showing you that it's the 8th month, which is August. So right there at the 3 o'clock position, you can see 30, 31. As soon as it turned, there you go, the 9th month. So if I want to set today's date, I turn it a couple more times, and there you go. Many of you are after the stainless steel blue dial Sky Dweller, which is one of the hottest watches out there right now, but there's so many hot watches that Rolex makes today. This, for me, is really nice. If you wanted something substantial, if you wanted something in rose gold, or Ever Rose as Rolex calls it, this is a really, really cool piece. It serves more of a purpose than a chronograph because it has the dates. I love the feature on the bezel where you can actually help change the dates, the hours, and on your wrist, it really feels great. It can fit under a suit. You could wear it any day. You could wear it every day. You can wear it just for special occasions. Price-wise, I was shocked to see that this watch only retails for $48,850. So for watch number 2 on my shopping spree, I chose the Rolex Sky Dweller. Oh my gosh, so all this money to spend, what do I do next? Well, number 3 on the list, and this is a piece that many of you know because last week I kept talking about 1921 Walnut Street, and everybody's like, you kept saying 1921, and I said to myself, where did I come up with that number? And then I realized, well, this is why I came up with the number. I was obsessing over the Vacheron Constantin 1921 historic tribute watch. Since this watch has come out in 2008, I've never gotten sick of looking at it. Every time I could try it on or even just play with it when I'm visiting a store that carries Vacheron, and even today, thankfully, we have it. It's just a really nice looking piece. A little bit about the timepiece. It's reference 82035. It's the caliber 4400 AS. It's similar to what the Patrimony uses in their automatic movements. I could switch it around to make it a little bit, there you go, 12-6. It's a rectangular watch. However, the crown, when you set it on your wrist, the crown is between normally where the 1 and 2 is, but it's actually right above the 12. When you put it on your wrist, actually we had a customer who came in today, I just want to say hi to Sam, who was trying on this timepiece. He made a really good point. This is a great watch because when you put it down and you're actually reading the time, you don't have to turn your wrist. You can actually read the time just like that. So it's a little bit more natural when you're trying to read the time of your timepiece. It's a very simple watch. Because it has just the hours, the minutes, the seconds, and the dial itself is really beautiful. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but I'll mention it again. The Breguet numerals. I absolutely love the Breguet numerals. Every time I see it on a timepiece, it always speaks to me. Frank Miller used to use a lot of the Breguet numerals, and of course Breguet. So this timepiece is 40 by 40 millimeters. It's a cushion case, 18 karat gold. One of the nice features about this timepiece also is if we look at the movement, this is a Geneva seal timepiece in the terms of it's the new Poinçon de Genève, so it was actually the 2012 standards. So the finishing of the watch, everything about it is spectacular. The price for this timepiece is $34,000. So you're spending a little bit more than what you would normally would for an automatic timepiece. But at the end of the day, it's, for me, the most iconic piece in the collection right now. Somebody asked me, what's the one watch that you would buy from Vacheron Constantin? What would it be? That's right, the historic. I also wanted to mention about the strap, just because it comes on a on a brown strap. You could totally dress it up in a black strap, even navy. Remember, this is one thing that I'm always going to talk about. Change your strap, change your watch. But on this particular timepiece, on this classic Vacheron Constantin, I would leave it alone. I would wear it as much as I could. $34,000 in stock. Please come check it out. You won't be let down. Let's take one more look at the back of the case. There it is. And let's show that beautiful dial one last time. Okay. Number 3. Well, actually, that was number 3. Let's talk about number 4. Number 4, which is something that I was able to come across just recently, and I started to really pay attention to this brand. Also a living, breathing watchmaker, so just like F.P. Journe, just like Franck Muller, just like Roger Dubuis. Mr. Laurent Ferrier, he's, if any of you don't know him, his history is basically similar to Roger Dubuis. He was at Patek Philippe for many years, in charge of high complications. This is actually the first Laurent Ferrier that I've actually touched in person, and I had such a great time looking at this timepiece, winding it. It really is a spectacularly made timepiece. I love the strap. You have this suede finishing to it. It actually matches a pair of suede Ferragamo shoes that I have. So I thought, oh my gosh, this is like gonna be the watch for that outfit. The dial, you have the chocolate dial, rose gold. It's a very thin case, so you can wear it under your sleeve. You could dress it down. I mean, but essentially, this watch is probably a piece that I would save for a little bit more of a dressy occasion. And of course, you're going to want to wear some brown with it. The case is 41 millimeters. I can't get that right. There it is. It's 41 millimeters. It has a 3-day power reserve. Obviously, I mentioned it's a cushion case. It's basically a round pushed into a square. And it's called the galet square. So if you don't speak French, galet literally means pebble. So it looks just like a pebble. The suede calfskin was what I was referring to earlier. Very nice. The actual case itself, I know many of us have compared this to a Panerai Radomir, and it actually reminds me of one, but it's just a little bit more sophisticated. It's slightly thinner. How am I doing with the dial? Are we getting that right? In terms of the actual hour indices, you have the dart style indexes, you have the dimple minute indexes, and then the spear style hand. The minute index, the minute markers are just like tiny little drops, like teardrops, really subtle, but when you get a close look at the dial, you get to see what a fantastic dial this really is. Simple, but at the same time, very well thought out and a beautiful piece. I don't know the original retail on this timepiece, but pre-owned, and I have to check to see if we have the box with the original warranty and guarantee, retails for $39,995. Now let's talk about the back. As we know, whenever we're talking about fine timepieces, it's always great to check out the back of the timepiece. And here we have the case back, and this was actually a collaboration with Laurent Ferrier, Barbassini, and Nivas. So they all contributed to this. So when you look at if you look at the back of the watch, and I'm going to point that out, it says FBN 22901. So this was a collaboration. One of the collaborations that I just saw recently with Urwerk, I'm really excited to see that timepiece with Laurent Ferrier. So it seems to me like he is just one of those guys who's collaborating with all of the great watches and watchmakers in the industry, so I can't wait to see what it comes out with in the future. As I said before, and maybe you've heard this for the first time, absolutely love the micro rotor. And here you have the rose gold micro rotor. Beneath it, you have the dual direct escapement. And of course, the finishing is a linear Côte de Genève. If you're planning to go out on an evening, or if you want to have a special timepiece, I would say Laurent Ferrier is definitely something that you should look into for your next purchase. We do only have, I believe, one or two. As I said, this is the first time that I've actually ever handled one. I absolutely love it. It's to die for. The crown, the winding system, the dial, everything about it is really spectacular. So that's watch number 4 on my list. Number 5. So I went a little classic with the Historique and the Laurent Ferrier Galet. So I wanted to go a little bit more sporty, even though we have the FP Journe Centigraph and the Rolex Sky Dweller. Well, I needed to bring something a little bit more bulky, a little bit more Royal Oak. So we're going to be seeing a lot of the Royal Oak offshores. I chose this piece because for me, forged carbon fiber has been a material that I've always loved when it's incorporated with timepieces. And I feel like Audemars Piguet does a really good job of this case. Of course, it's the very traditional 3-counter chrono with date, and but it also uses several different elements. You've got ceramic, you've got forged carbon, you've got titanium, and you've got steel. So using a bunch of different materials, the strap is made of rubber, and this was the rubber strap that was used for divers' watches. And basically what it does is it helps keep the watch light. It's a massive watch, 44 millimeters, but in actuality it really measures close to 60 millimeters. So you have to have, I'm going to take my Rolex Submariner off because I want to show this. One of the things that that nobody's asked me yet, and I was surprised, is why do I wear my watch on my right hand? And I always tell people, well, take your watch from your left hand and put it on your right hand. How does that feel? Weird, right? Yeah, it's the same thing for me. When I take my watch and put it on my left hand, it just feels awkward. Plus, I never liked the crown digging into the back of my hand. So it's a way to sort of safeguard your hand from getting poked by the crown if you have pushers or sharp edges. But I want to put this watch on my wrist because it's pretty hefty, but it feels super light. So here it is with the rubber strap. It does not feel heavy at all. And I'm used to wearing big watches. Can we get a close-up of that on my wrist? There it is. One of the nice features also on the dial, it's got the Mega Tapisserie, and you actually have bigger blocks on there. So when we look at most of the APs, you have smaller blocks. This one is actually really nice because it's a little bit different. As I said, it's a 3-counter chronograph. The bezel is made of ceramic. The actual case is made of forged carbon fiber, and it's so smooth, it's so light, and it almost looks like camouflage. So what led me to think, I started to see a lot of these watch guys putting camouflage straps on their pieces. I would totally wear one of those black, white, and gray camouflage to definitely change the look and feel of this watch, because it is all black. You do have some red accents. You've got the white gold markers for the hours, the white gold hands. You also have some superluminova in there, and slight red accents with a little bit of white for the tachometer. It really is an exceptional timepiece. And as I said, you don't have to worry about the size, because it wears so light, and on a piece like this, and many of the larger pieces out there, you definitely want that to be seen. You don't want it to be hidden. And you really couldn't hide this timepiece. I would say that this is a great timepiece for that athlete, for that guy above 6 feet tall, with a bigger wrist. Yeah. Move it. Sorry. Harrison's talking to me. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, Harrison, but he's pointing, so I think he said I have to take this watch off my wrist. Is that what you were saying? No? Oh, bring it closer. There you go. Sorry. Here you go. There it is. So one last look at the AP Royal Oak Offshore with the forged carbon fiber, titanium, stainless steel, and ceramic. Really great piece. This is actually a pre-owned piece, so it retails slightly under $30,000. I didn't have time to find the actual retail price on it, but email me if you're interested, and I can tell you. I think it's a great deal. If you want to get in on an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore, I would start with definitely this piece. All right. Now, finally, la pièce de la résistance, the final piece in my collection. So I got back from the Borgata. I won a ton of money, thanks to my Franck Muller roulette piece. Once again, if any of you haven't seen it, let's get a little bit of a close-up so that we can see that dial again. There it is. And lucky 3 is the winner. So with the rest of my winnings, I decided if I was going to go on a watch shopping spree, no shopping spree in Govberg Jewelers is correct unless you add a tourbillon to the collection. So I know it's my second FP Journe, but since I've moved to Philadelphia, I've really started to follow and really started to enjoy this wonderful brand for obvious reasons. Let's see. As I said, this is the Tourbillon Souverain. It retails for $163,400. It's a 40 millimeter, and by the way, I set the time so it should be correct. It's a 40 millimeter platinum case, super slim, 10 millimeters thick. The dial is wonderful with this gray charcoal dial, and of course classic FP Journe in the way that it looks. I mean, as soon as you see this piece or many of the FP Journes out there, you know right away what it is. The 9 o'clock area, you have a free-spun filigree tourbillon cage. So here we have the tourbillon. Can we get a little bit closer there so everybody could see that tourbillon spinning? Very beautiful, and underneath it you see all this great finishing. It's got the rose gold accent. It's very nice. At the 6 o'clock you have a deadbeat second hand, which switches to a constant second hand to prevent loss of time after a third of the power is left. So if you can look at it right now, it's ticking like a deadbeat second. And I want to also discuss the power reserve, which is also very interesting. I didn't wind it 100% because I wanted to share with you how to actually power this watch. Taking the gloves off, and there you go. So if you look at the power reserve indicator, there it is, 0 to 40. When you wind it, it actually winds down to 0. So it's a 42, it says 42 hours for the power reserve, but when you wind it down, it goes to 0. So look at that, right over there. That actually tells you that the watch is fully wound. The watch will actually, when it hits 42, that's when you know you need to wind it. So of course it's a manual wound watch. And at the 3 o'clock you have the hours and minutes. So tourbillon, seconds, deadbeat second, retrograde power reserve, And then, as if this watch could not get any better, let's turn it around and look at that beautiful movement. So you have the 18 karat rose gold caliber, 1403, 26 jewels, and it is chronometer standard by Mr. Francois Paul Journe. Look at that beautiful Côte de Genève finishing. It has a lot of very intriguing and interesting accents and the finishing, the engravings on the back of the watch, on the outside. I love the accents between the rose gold and the platinum. And as I said, this watch is very wearable with a suit because it's super thin. It's the only tourbillon that I chose today because, well, there's not that many great companies that can make tourbillons. I'm going to take a look at this upside down now. There it is. So I have small wrists. This watch fits perfectly. If you're looking for a tourbillon, if you're looking for a brand that makes great complications, that doesn't flood the market, that is very low in terms of distribution, very exclusive, I think FP Journe is definitely the way to go. So that's that. Now, in summary, I hit Atlantic City thanks to my Frank Mueller Vegas watch. I hit the jackpot. I took my chopper back to Philly. I went on a crazy shopping spree. And with a little under $400,000, I was able to come up with 7 really cool watches. Of course, tomorrow I could pick another 7 watches, but at the end of the day, this is what I came up with. I really like the variation that I have here, the fact that I have some complications. I like the fact that I have some rose gold in there, some titanium, some forged carbon fiber. So I have a little bit of everything. And I basically did this exercise because I wanted to share with some of you collectors, some of you shoppers out there, what would you do if you came across all this money and you wanted to basically build a collection? So I thought I did a pretty good job. I shared it with some of my colleagues. Tim thought I did a good job in picking my watches. So, you know, I got his stamp of approval. So thanks, Tim. And basically, the next show, I hope to also show you some other timepieces in the high-end collection. Also in terms of brands like Laurent Ferrier, Vacheron Constantin, FP Journe, and so many other really great brands out there. So this is going to be a little bit of a taste of what we're going to do in the future. High-end, expensive, rare, and sometimes unnecessary. So, wanted to thank you all for joining us. We're in September now. Summer's over, so you have no excuse to hit the beach anymore. Come visit us. We're at 1521 Walnut, not 1921. This is the 1921 right here. One more time. Sam, I know you're out to dinner with Josh and the other guys, so really, this watch looked fantastic on your wrist. I hope that it finds a new home, and I think your boys are going to really appreciate it. So once again, 1521 Walnut. We're in Center City, Philadelphia. Come visit us. 3rd floor, we have this great studio. 2nd floor, we have brands like Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, Panerai, Jaeger-LeCoultre, Vacheron Constantin, Tudor. We also have a great selection of pre-owned watches. On the 1st floor, we have Rolex, we have Breitling, we have IWC, we have Hublot. So if you really are into watches and you're in the Philadelphia area, I can't think of a better place to come visit. I want to thank everybody again for joining me on this 2nd show of Top Shelf Tuesday. I wish you a wonderful week ahead, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Have a great day. All the best.